For more analysis, we're joined by Lee-Anne Bac, who is Director, Tourism Specialist Unit at BDO South Africa. Thank you very much for coming.
Thanks, Colin.
Right, let's start on the business side of things. To have a business registered in one day could be in one's reading of the situation and undertone of having so many businesses registered, but what will they be specializing in?
Well, I suppose it's about finding those opportunities. There's lots of opportunities, and especially when you look at the youth, they're creative. They're coming with these new ideas. And within tourism, there's lots of opportunities within tourism as well. Yes, it does involve work. It's not things can't be laid out on a platter, and I think that's what we need to make clear to entrepreneurs, is that work is involved with having your own business.
And then when it comes to businesses generating their own energy with this 1 megawatt initiative, does it say that Eskom won't turn around now in the not so distant future? In the meantime, you can do it yourself?
Well, I think the devil's in the detail in all of that. It was a high-level plan that the president presented about generating your own power. Let's see what happens with the detail and the actual implementation and how it actually rolls out.
And then what's in the offing for tourists in as far as their safety is concerned? Do you think that the strategy is going to work? Are tourists going to be saved after the announcement by the president? All he mentioned was the fact that we're increasing policing and we're having some tourism safety monitors at key tourist attractions. But there's a whole lot more that has to go into a strategy around tourism safety. It's about what do we tell the tourists before they come to the country? What do we tell them when they're here? What's the strategy of what do we deal when there is an incident? How do we handle it? How do we handle it in the press? So there's a whole lot more around it that we need to tackle. And obviously we can't just focus on tourism attractions. It's one cog in a very, very big process that needs to be implemented. Overall, I think from a tourism perspective, the SONA was very disappointing because tourism got very little mention at all. It was just a mention about the policing, and there was a mention about forming a tourism equity fund for transformation. But there was no mention whatsoever in terms of the potential that tourism has to have an impact on the unemployment levels in this country. It's a low-hanging fruit. It's a massive opportunity. And I think that I'm concerned that has the president lost favor with tourism because of the bad year that was had in 2019. I think it was a missed opportunity. It was a missed opportunity to motivate the industry and to motivate the nation. But when you look at South Africa as a whole, tourism doesn't happen in the vacuum. It happens right on the ground for people who want to drive around, go sightseeing.
Absolutely.
But with the road infrastructure in its current state in South Africa, if the roads are untenable, what does the one do?
That is part of the issue that we're facing. And that's what I mentioned the other day when I was chatting to you, is the fact that tourism is not something that is handled by the tourism ministry and by the tourism private sector. It's something that relies on every person in this country to deliver on what is needed, from being a welcoming nation, but also to making sure that our local municipalities are functioning well, that we've got electricity, that our roads are well maintained. It's about showcasing the country, and it's about showcasing who we are and how we function.
Do you think now, going forward, there's going to be really a turnaround in as far as the impression that South Africa has created about itself as a preferred tourist destination?
Definitely not from the SONA. So the private sector, I think, to me, the message was clear. The private sector has to continue to try and entrepreneur itself out of bad policy decisions.
And then when it comes to that, am I reading that you are saying that there's a lot of policy uncertainty with regards to that?
Yes. There's policies in place within our public sector environment that hinder tourism. And the private sector has to try and operate around this red tape and difficulties that they're facing.
So at the moment, just before you go, with the other time you were mentioning that, with the importance of tourism being focused on, there would be so much opportunities and job created when the the sector itself embraces transformation. Now, at the moment, we see a lot of people have gone private, and it seems like there isn't that interchange between what government has to offer in terms of an enabling environment for business to function properly, when as far as infrastructure is concerned, and energy provision. What does the private sector do in order to stay afloat, even when sometimes government is disappointing?
You know, I think it's difficult, and they have to be self-motivated to actually remain positive in those very tough times. And we do see people throwing in the towel and saying, I can't actually keep going. So they need to have a lot of self-motivation and a lot of their own positivity to actually keep going through through the tough situation that we're facing. And it probably applies to many businesses in this country at the moment.
All right, thank you very much for making time.
Thank you.
All right, Lee-Anne Bac is who's Director of Tourism at the Specialist Unit of BDO South Africa, giving us her views on the post-SONA analysis.